Hey you guys, welcome to another Talks with Kera. This is episode 5. Guys, please excuse the background noise. In this episode, we're going to be talking about growth. And our scriptures are going to be Isaiah 43:18 through 19, Proverbs 24:10, and Proverbs 16:3. I'm going to read those last for you guys. And I do have a couple pages, so just kind of treat this as an audio. So we're talking about growth, guys. And I want to give you guys a definition, which I know you guys know what it means, but I want to give you the definition first before we even dive into it. So according to the Oxford Languages Dictionary, the definition of growth is the process of increasing in physical size, or it's also something that is growing or has grown. And some synonyms are growing, extension, widening, thickening, broadening, heightening, swelling, magnification, ballooning, development, maturation, sprouting, blooming, flourishing, thriving. And like the opposite of those, which would be like antonyms, are thinking about like shrinking or withering. And when we're talking about growth, I want you guys to think about, where are you growing in your life now? Like in all areas, financially, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, with your dreams and goals, with your body and self-image and your relationships, just every area of your life, your job, your career, your family, whatever, where are you growing and how are you growing? And what are some areas that you need to grow and develop in? So I want to give you guys some of these points. The first point being, number one, to grow in God. Always make sure that your growth in God is number one, because once that's number one, everything else will grow. Everything else will, thrive and expand and enlarge, and everything else will pretty much be set because it's on the right track. It's on the foundation because you're growing in God. You're getting your spiritual growth going and glowing, and then everything else will fall in place, because you notice a lot of times in life and in different people's lives, they have all these other different things, but like spiritually they're out of whack. And it's like, because that relationship with God is not growing, or they're not, investing in their spirit man. So when I say investing, that could be through fasting and prayer, or getting in the word, or wanting to become more like Christ, whatever area. Like it means for that person to invest spiritually, to grow. You will see like a lot of times everything else is like off kilter. So number one, it is important for us to grow in God. And that's not like dependent within our own strength, but it's dependent on Him. And it's like, making that a priority, So next point, guys, you have to let go of old things. Like you have to be willing to let go and release old things in order to get or receive or attain new things and new blessings in your life. And sometimes, that can be really uncomfortable when you're comfortable being comfortable, when being comfortable is all you know, when being in that box of that familiarity is all you know. It could be hard to let go, because if you don't know better, and maybe that's all you're used to, maybe you may have a mentality where, well, this is as good as it gets. This is the life. This is the best thing. But it's like sometimes you have to let go and release the old in order to receive and get the new. You can hold on to an old car for as long as you want, but the purpose of that old car being old and you wanting new is because maybe it gave you different mechanical problems, or maybe it fit you in one season but it don't fit you in this season. So in order to get the new, you kind of want to release the old, because if you don't, you're going to have both new and old. And the old is going to cost you more problems. It's going to cost you more stress. It's going to cost you unnecessary things that you really don't have to deal with. Whereas, you have the memories of it. It served its purpose for the certain seasons that it did. But you've got to get used to this new thing. That's like moving to a new city, moving in a new home, moving into a new building, starting a new business, getting into a new relationship, learning new things about yourself, leaving something dead and old for maybe a better career or a better job, maybe thinking better about yourself. Anything. You have to let go of old things and even old people, guys. You know, it's not saying completely discard them, because they're still human. God can still use people, but this is a word for somebody. The enemy used people too. And deep down in your gut, in your spirit, your intuition, deep down things. This is for some people that like that's an old season. And you wondering why, like, okay, it seemed like I'm limited, or it seemed like things are not really like flowing and moving how they're supposed to. Like, it's not really coming together in harmony. It's because of those old things. Now, some things that are old can be redeemed, but some things it's just that's what it was for that time. And that's going back to how there are seasons and times, going back to Ecclesiastes 3:1. So this point again, you have to let go. And another thing, not only do you have to let go, but you have to be willing. Because the Bible says in Isaiah, if you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But then it talks about further, like, I believe, like, but they refused, or they didn't want to do it. But it's a difference between, wanting to do it and knowing you need to do it, and then the steps in between. What you gonna do? So a person that know they need to do something, they know they need to do it. But if they're not willing, it's like, okay. And if a person is willing to do it, but they're not doing it, it's like, okay. So you gotta know, like, when something is up, when the time and season is up, because the old can hinder the new. Let's say you're losing weight, or or maybe you gaining weight. It's like a good healthy weight, or whatever works for you. You know what I'm saying? And you have on the old. Some things are comfortable, some old things are comfortable. But if you getting ready for something new, a lot of that old stuff can't come. You're getting a brand new house, and you bring in a bunch of raggedy things that have no symbolic value to you. It's just old, it's just raggedy. It has served its purpose, and you constantly taking it with you everywhere you go. And it's like, but this is something brand new. So you got to get ready for the new. You can't bring something old in an old relationship to a new relationship. You got to make sure even you're new. So with you letting go of old things and releasing old things to receive and attain new things, you also have to be willing to shed old things, old mindsets, old mentalities. We talked about this before when it came to Romans with renewing the mind. And you got to be able and ready to receive and attain new things, new blessings, new people. You ever heard that saying talking about when one door closes, another door opens? Out with the old, in with the new. A lot of people say it, but when it comes down to it, is it really out with the old and in with the new? So, number one, grow in God. And, you have to remember, you are constantly growing. You are constantly evolving. You are, you're not the same person that you were. Some of you won't even be this same person that you are now, and that you're becoming or will be and coming into, because you're learning new things about you, and you're in new seasons. You're learning new things about God. You're learning new things about life. You're going through different life experiences. You're learning new things about yourself. You're developing physically. You're developing mentally and emotionally and spiritually. You're developing in every area of your life. You're growing. You're constantly evolving and growing. So you got to keep that in mind with your seasons in life when it comes to growth, So we're going to talk a little bit about, before we get into those different points, let me tell you guys these points. Some more points, because I'm not going to be before you guys long with this talk. I'm going to try not to. So sometimes, guys, in order to get better, you got to give better. Some people want what they're not willing to be. They want back what they're not willing to give. And sometimes you really have to, in order to want better, you have to give better. In order to get better, you got to give better. It's always another level. If you want, that could be also like in time, like with your attitude, with your love, with your seeds, with your character, with your commitments, with your sacrifice. Let's say you constantly, and we have a lot of videos talking about this, but let's say you constantly just giving out bad attitude. What you think you're going to reap back? You're going to reap back bad attitude in abundance, because the Bible says, be not deceived. God is not going to be mocked. A man is going to reap what he sows. So whatever you're giving out, you're going to get back. It's also going back to this was, I believe, in Luke or Matthew, when it talked about a tree and its fruit, how the tree is going to produce the fruit of its, basically it's going to produce the fruit. You're going to know the tree by the fruit. So sometimes you got to go up another level. You know what I'm saying? You got to, if you keep doing it on the same level, you're going to keep getting it on the same level. If you go year in and year out making the same money, doing the same things, having the same attitude, having the same mentality, doing the same things, staying on the same level, you're going to keep getting the same results. But sometimes when you take it up a level and you think out the box, you know, you can get more out that box. Another thing, growth. Growth is not always comfortable. It can be painful at times, but it is necessary. In order for you to give birth to a child, the child has to grow. You know, there's living, there's stillborns, but we're talking about life. And in order for that child to properly, you know, develop and come out healthy and have everything it needs, they have to grow. It's going to be uncomfortable for you, but it's helping the child. And ultimately, it's going to help you also, because that's what you're giving birth to. So growth, guys, in any area of our life, is not always going to be comfortable. Because it's comfortable being comfortable until sometimes where that comfort is not bringing you comfort, because you know it's more outside of that. So growth is not always comfortable. It can be painful at times. It can be inconvenient. It could be annoying. It could be aggravating. It could be painful. It could feel like a thorn, but it is necessary. And you know that level, and you know that, you know that lesson in that level, in that learning during that season of your life will not be wasted. So some things that the Lord showed me when I was taking notes for this. Growth equals life. Growth equals better. Growth equals improving. Growth equals shedding the old to get to the new. Growth equals commitment. Growth equals sacrifice. Growth equals determination. Okay, you guys, and remember what we said the definition of growth was. It's the process of increasing in physical size, something that is growing or has grown. It's something growing, it's extension, it's widening, it's thickening, it's broadening, it's heightening, it's swelling, it's magnification, it's ballooning, it's development, it's maturation, it's sprouting, blooming, flourishing, thriving. Okay, and when it comes to growth, guys, people grow at different levels. And then, of course, the opposite of growth is shrinking and withering. You know, so people grow at different levels. People grow physically at different levels in their heights and stuff. People grow mentally at different levels. People are in different places of growth emotionally. People at different places of growth financially. You know, people are in different phases and stages of growth in like relationships and just different things. So there's different stages to growth. Everyone grows and matures at different stages and levels of life. You know, some people want to grow, some people don't want to grow. And, you know, when it comes to you, you got to figure out what side you want to be on. And you can't allow who doing what to like block and stop your growth. Because if you don't, then it's going to be the opposite of what God want to bless you with you growing and enlarging and increasing and growing, getting better and improving. You're going to be shrinking and withering. And that's not what he has for you. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, according to John 10:10. But Jesus came that we may have life and have it, you know, to the full. So when thinking about growth, you can't think only like for temporary or get so physically and emotionally focused on what you're dealing with, or like this so uncomfortable, or why I'm dealing with this, or why this worked, or why that didn't work, or this, that, and the third. And you so miss out on the long term. Like, especially as a Christian, you have to look at this long term. You can't miss out on long term looking short term. And it's not saying deny reality or, you know, don't look at what's going on. But it's saying if you're growing and this is something you've never done before, this is someone you've never been before, but you're growing towards things and you're allowing God to grow you and mature and develop you so that you can be better in your life. And you just get so you just so hone in on what's happening or not happening that you want to quit and give out. That's another sign that you got to keep growing. that you're immature and underdeveloped. It don't matter how old you are, because maturity, it takes a lot to be mature. It takes lessons and losses and a lot of things to reach maturity. It takes wisdom for maturity. It takes good and bad highs and lows for maturity. So if you think about it, maturity is always growing, but immaturity is going back to that opposite. It's shrinking, it's withering, because it cannot grow. It's going to stay on that level. It's going to rise up a little bit, but it's going to not go further unless it decides to mature. And an example for this, look at this world. Like Christians in this world, we face different things. We go through different trials and storms. We go through good and bad. But if we say, oh well, what's the point of being a Christian because of what I'm going through in this world, or what's happening in this world, I give up. And instead of comparing it to eternity, which we have videos talking about that, then that's not growth. That's not Christ. So I'm gonna give you guys the scriptures last. Another thing I wanted to talk about, when you have a garden, this is what the Lord has shown me. When you have a garden with certain plants, like think like about a rose or just some different type of plants, you have to prune certain type of plants and cultivate them according to their environment. It's not saying you hate the plant because you clipping and pruning the plant and you getting rid of the thorns and you sculpting it to be what you want it to be. This is kind of like God is the potter and we are the clay type of thing. He don't hate us. He loves us. When we go through different things, some people allow the enemy to play with their mind and they stay there. And you have to remember the word of God. And you have to remember who God is and was to you before all of that, and what he will be to you during that and after. You have to remember, it's not saying it's comfortable or you're going to always feel like praising, but it's like you can't give into the lie of the enemy. The person that is pruning their plant and cultivating it and nourishing it accordingly, like physically, like maybe giving it, allowing it to be in the sun or water or different type of things. They don't hate it because they're clipping and pruning it. They are putting it through that process, and they are allowing it to go through that process because they see that beyond where it currently is as a baby plant or baby rose or however that work, or a baby seed. They see the potential. They see it for what it can be. They see the beauty in the mess. They see it thriving and prospering and reaching its full destiny. And that's like a seed. If you planting a seed, whether you plant that seed for like a fruit tree or vegetables or whatever, you're planting it for, maybe that's something you just like to do for a hobby, but eventually you planting it for a profit. So that maybe you can sell it, or maybe you can enjoy the benefits. You and your family can enjoy those benefits for a harvest. And that's how God is doing many of you. It's for a harvest. It's for his glory. It's for what you will become. He don't want you to stay in this level, because if you just stay in the seed form level, that's all you're going to be able to say is, oh, I'm just a seed. But what about the value and the importance that's placed inside the seed? Okay, you guys. So I want you to think about this. Financially, what are some ways that you are growing? What are some ways that you have had to grow? And what are some ways that you will grow? So one point for this, I won't give you guys all of them, but just a few points would be, you want to be wise. You want to look at your past. You want to look at what's liabilities and assets in your life. What are some ways you can invest? What are some ways you can give back into God's kingdom? What are some ways you can save? What are some ways you can invest maybe in your kids or your family or different things you're connected to? What are some ways you can financially invest in you? What are some things you can do that's going to cause growth? Spiritually, number one, you want to grow in God. God is our life direction. He is our life source. He is our life compass. We have to make sure spiritually that we're growing. We go from level to level. We go from faith to faith, level to level, and glory to glory. But you got to be willing to go from that level to get to the next. Mentally, emotionally, in your soul, how are you growing? How have you grown? How do you need to grow? What can you do, and then what do you need God to help you to do, and then what can y'all do together? Physically, like in your literal world, your surroundings, your environment. What are some ways you want to grow? And I want you guys to think about this in the now and in the future. Think about it like short term, long term. Think about it literally, physically, and spiritually. So for your physical, literal surroundings and atmosphere in your environment, what do you see like this? I need to grow with this, or I need to grow in this area, or we need to, what is that looking like for you when it comes to your personal dreams and goals? Not what people want you to do, your personal dreams and goals, your God-given dreams and goals, that God thing that he put in you. What about the growth? Your body, your self-image. What about that? Your career, your job, your business. What about that? When it comes to your education and learning, whether it be online or in the school, or you just self-teaching, or you just taking different classes or courses or whatever. What about that? Or Zoom calls or Zoom links, or how they do it. What about those things? When it comes to ministry, like God's kingdom ministry, but also the ministry that God has placed within you, the destiny and purpose he's placed within you, what about, what is that with the growth? What has the growth been looking like in the past? What is it looking like now? And what do you see? What is the God vision that he's given you for the growth when it comes to your relationships? Because relationships vary. You can have business relationships, you can have family relationships, you can have friendships, you can have intimate relationships like with your spouse, different things. And then your spouse is not just intimacy, they could be your best friend also, but we're not talking about that. We didn't talk about relationships multiple times before, but relationally, where's the growth? And I've given you guys this years back, but looking at people like the math system, who's coming to add, who's coming to subtract, who's coming to divide, who's coming to multiply in your life. And then you got to look at who you are in other people's life, who you adding into, who you coming to divide and multiply and subtract from. Your motives are important with this also. So that's going to be enough for the notes, you guys. Glory to God. Let me just close with the scriptures.